what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds. I'm a property investor. I'm the best-selling author of the book Buy Low, Rent High. I've been investing in property for over a decade and I've helped thousands of people with my Property Investors Crash Course. And right now on YouTube, I'm going to be answering your questions about property from last Sunday's video. So while I'm answering these questions, if you've got a question that pops into your mind, comment it below, and next Sunday I'm going to be answering your questions. So comment any questions you've got about property below, anything at all, whether it's about finance, tax, how to get deals, where to buy, what to buy, when to buy, HMO, service accommodation, lease option agreements, anything, comment below. I'll do my best to answer. Make it a specific personal question to you. The more specific, the better. And also don't forget to smash the like button. And if you enjoy my channel, please do subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and keep your questions coming. Let's see. So last week we had Bushra who said, would you buy a property now? Yes, I would buy a property now, as long as it was in the right area and at the right price, 100%. Ben Parkinson, rent to HMO or rent to serviced accommodation? Okay, so right now, that's a really good question. Right now, I'm extremely excited about serviced accommodation just because so many people have handed the keys back to serviced accommodation units. So if I was going to do rent to HMO, rent to serviced accommodation right now, probably rent to serviced accommodation. As much as HMOs are my first love, and I do think HMOs are going to get more popular over the next sort of 6-12 months, but right now I think rent to serviced accommodation is absolutely popping because so many people have been disillusioned with it during the lockdown. All right, Karen says, hi Samuel, love your enthusiasm in all of your videos. Thank you so much. I'm about to start out on my first project becoming financially free, which is converting my parents' house to a 7 double-bed HMO. Good for you, that sounds awesome. Is it better to split the profit with my parents to lower the income tax paid? Oh, and do you mentor one-to-one? If not, what's the best way to find one when you don't know a lot about who you are doing successfully in the property market? Thanks for your feedback and keep it real. Thanks for your message. Do I one-to-one mentor? Yes, I do one-to-one mentor, and I do that through Samuel365. If you go to samuel365.com, it's £95 a month, and I do mentoring. I have a team of mentors, and I think you'll find that really helpful. But to answer your first question, which is, should you split the profit with your parents to lower the tax income paid? Okay, first thing I'll say is this: yes, it will lower the tax income, because if you're making money from a 7-bed HMO and you take half the money, you give your parents half the money, of course you're going to pay less tax, because the more you earn as an individual, it's like a sliding scale, so the more tax you pay. However, my advice, don't make a decision based on what's going to save you the most tax. You need to make a decision on what's going to make you the most money. So don't just say, oh, we'll split the profit because that will save more tax. No, you got to think what's going to be the best deal, the fairest deal, what's going to make the most money. Also, you say you're just starting out and this is your first deal. If you're just starting out in property, if you're going in property full time, as long as you've not got any other income sources, you don't pay a penny tax on your first £11,000 profit. So, and then after that as well, if you've got a limited company, you're going to pay yourself an £11,000 wage, so you don't pay any tax on that, and then you're going to pay yourself in dividends. And for the first £30,000 in dividends, you're only going to pay 7.5% tax, which means you could be on a £40,000 salary and you're going to be paying peanuts in tax. So I probably wouldn't worry too much about that right now. I'd just be thinking about, how do I make this deal stack? How do I make sure that there's money in the deal, rather than letting the tail wag the dog? The tail is the tax and the dog is making money. Hope that helps. Great question though. Next, Jeremy says, hi Samuel, appreciate the content, incredibly helpful. Thank you, I appreciate that. I hope you're a subscriber. During the coronavirus pandemic, we saw tenants losing their jobs and being allowed not to pay rent or get evicted. Would you advise adding a legal clause of some kind to tenancy contracts to protect against tenants who lose their jobs during future pandemics? Hopefully there won't be too many future pandemics, especially with rent to rents where landlords aren't likely to get mortgage breaks from the government, as it's not their mortgage but the owners. How do landlords protect themselves while still being fair to tenants in tough pandemic unemployment situations? Cheers, Jez. Thanks for your question, Jez. Listen, number one, I hope that there's not going to be plenty of pandemics. This is the first pandemic like this I've ever had in my lifetime, and I've spoke to people that are much older than me and have said the same thing. So can you get in your tenancy agreement that your tenant has to pay rent regardless of a future pandemic? To be honest, I probably think no, because if the reason that tenants didn't have to pay their rent, and it's not that they didn't have to pay it, they don't be under no illusion. Tenants had to pay rent during the pandemic. It's just that if they were behind on rent and they weren't paying rent, you weren't allowed to evict them in the middle of the pandemic lockdown. And to be honest, I think that's fair, because during the lockdown and the pandemic situation, and by the way, this whole tenant thing, this was only over a few month period. I think it's still going on right now, but this isn't like, oh, for the next 2 years. During the heat of everyone losing their jobs, everyone being furloughed, everybody being absolutely freaking out and not knowing what they're allowed to do, people not allowed to see their families, being stuck at home with no gardens a lot of the time, all the government was saying is, yeah, now's not the time to evict someone. If you've got a tenant that's not paying their rent, just give them a bit of grace until lockdown's finished. Then they have to pay the rent. Then they have to catch up. I think that's reasonable. And whilst it's a pain for a landlord, I just think you've got to be fair, and you've got to look at what's fair. And also on top of that, not many of my tenants didn't pay rent. Most of my tenants continued paying rent because they didn't want to be evicted as soon as the lockdown finished. So Jez, probably wouldn't worry too much about it. Just be a good landlord, be in good communication with your tenants, and you'll find that even if there is a future pandemic, probably most of them, if your tenants are like my tenants, will continue paying anyway. Next, George Griff says, I'm looking to buy a 2-bed property in Croydon where they're planning to build a Westfield in the near future. Is it better to buy an ex-council flat in less than a quarter of a mile from the town centre, or about 5 miles away in a better area? George, Croydon, I think it depends on what the ROI is. You're talking about how they're planning to build Westfield in the near future. I personally wouldn't worry too much about that, because what they're planning to do in the near future, that doesn't pay you any bills right now. So expected capital appreciation is good, but it's a bonus. What needs to happen is the deal needs to stack up and it needs to cash flow and put money in your pocket every single month. So my advice would be to buy the property that's going to put more cash flow in your pocket right now from rent, rather than trying to think too much about the capital appreciation. Capital appreciation is good, but it's a bonus. Again, don't let the tail wag the dog. Next. Hey Can, do you think rent to service accommodation will work in current market conditions? Yes, because they're reopening the market and everything's all getting back to normal. And in fact, a lot of people that were doing rent to service accommodation handed the keys back to the landlord. So I think now is the opportunity. 100% yes. Noddy says, I love property buy to let, but not money. How? I love property buy to let, but not money. Does that mean, but you haven't got money, or you don't love money? I hope you love money, because buy-to-let is going to give you money. How can I buy? Well, if you've not got money and you want to get into buy-to-let, there's lots of different ways. Number one is you can raise the finance. You can get the money from an investor, an angel investor. You can get it from a bank. You can get the money raised lots of ways. Just raise the money if you haven't got it. Number two is you can make the money. You can be creative, make some extra money and save. Number three is you can do a joint venture, and you can find a really good deal and you can get somebody else to put the money in, and you can go 50-50s on the profit. Number three is you can do a rent to rent, where you control the property but don't own it, therefore you can get started with very little money. Number five is you can do a lease option agreement, where you can buy a property now but agree to pay for it later, and in the meantime you can take the monthly cash flow and you can benefit from the capital appreciation and exercise it at a later date when you've got the money. Number six is you can package deals and pass them on to investors and charge a broker fee in the middle. Like, there are so many ways. Just depends on what tickles your fancy, but just choose one, go friggin' make it happen. Okay, what we got next? Adrian, hi Samuel, I'm currently 17 years old, hustling and doing car washes to be able to get insured, etc. to be compliant, as said from your video a year ago. I'm glad that you've been watching me for so long. Would I still be able to deal source without being insured? Adrian, if you're going to be dealing with investors and you're going to be finding deals and passing them on to investors and you're not insured, the danger of that is if the deal goes bad and they try and sue you, it's not pretty. You're 17 years old. It's good that you're thinking like this. It's good that you're saving up. It's good that you're washing cars. My advice would be to find someone who is insured, find a deal sourcing company that's selling deals to investors, approach them and say, what kind of deals are you looking for? Find them a deal and pass them a deal. Let them sell it for you. Let them deal with the investor. Let them be the one that's responsible and is insured. But you ask for a commission fee. So let's say you find a deal that would sell for £3,000 typically. You say to this company, I found the deal, I've negotiated the deal, I got it from an estate agent. I'll pass it to you, you sell it, we'll go 50-50s on the profit. You made £1,500, boom. Then that £1,500, save it, put it in your bank and use that towards education to invest in yourself and use that towards setting up your compliant business and becoming insured. That's what I would say. Good luck, man, massively good luck. All right, last one. Joe says, hi Samuel, referencing buying houses rather than a house to avoid stamp duty, is it as simple as this? Obviously, for every house you buy, you can set up a limited company for next to nothing. Surely that'd be way too easy. Okay, Joe, I think you've slightly misunderstood. I think what your question is you're saying, if you can avoid stamp duty by buying through a company, why don't you just set up a company, buy a house? Set up a company, buy a house. It's not quite that simple because you don't avoid stamp duty by buying through a company. You only avoid stamp duty by buying a house that's in a company, and instead of buying the house, you buy the company. That's how it works. There's other ways to avoid paying stamp duty as well, like buying a property that is going to be serviced accommodation. I love serviced accommodation right now. You're going to pay commercial stamp duty tax, which is nothing up to £150,000. You could avoid stamp duty by buying a property that's inhabitable, and it's inhabitable if there's no hot water. So if the boiler's broken and it's not really fixable and you need a new boiler, guess what? The house is not habitable, you don't pay stamp duty. So there's other ways to avoid paying stamp duty. I hope that helps. Guys, thank you for watching the video. I know so much about property because I've been doing it for so long, and I just love sharing my knowledge on YouTube and helping people with tips, tricks to become successful in property, ultimately to become financially free like I did. If you like my videos, please show some support and some love by subscribing. Also smash the like button and drop your questions, and next week I will answer them. Thanks so much. See you next time.